What's up everybody, it's Neil, the mechanic at Aviator. We got a really cool episode going for you guys today. It's going to be a 40-hour review of the Limitless Paramotor. What's a 40-hour review, you ask? 40-ish hour reviews. I believe I have 39.4 here. Just some of the good points, the bad points that I've experienced over the last 40 hours on my personal machine. This is BRAAAPP-Zilla. This is my personal Limitless machine here with the Factory-R. I've been flying a bunch of these Limitless Paramotors, so I'm pretty familiar with them. These have a ton of adjustability, as you all well know. If you've looked on the website at all, there's something called the total control arms. You've got independently in and out. You can go up and down both ways. You've got adjustment on the length of the swing arms, different hang point settings here with the carabiner straps. As you can see on mine, I'm running on the center strap and 3 holes out right here. This has been good for me at about 160 pounds or so. Gives a really nice, comfortable feel in flight. Landing is super easy. I had been running it on the front slot and about 1 hole back, something like that. It was super stable, it was really nice, but noticed when I come into land, I'd be leaning back quite a bit. So measured the distance here to here, made that happen with the length of the swing arm itself, went to the center slot, and that made landing so much better. So this mark right here, when I get a new machine in, I typically make a mark at the factory setting. As you can see on mine, I'm about 3/4 of an inch down from factory. It gives a little bit more pitch, but it's a lot more comfortable. It seems like it has a lot more weight shift that way. Brings the carabiners, when you're in flight, brings the carabiners a little bit closer to the thrust center line. And I like the feel of that the best. I've ran it up a little bit higher, definitely a lot more stable when it is higher, especially with pitch stability. It gives it a lot better of a speed bar position when you're on power as well. But for me personally, that's where I've felt the most comfortable with it. I really like how it flies, being about 3/4 of an inch down from factory. I could go even further if I really wanted to. But if you look at the side here, if you look at this, this is your thrust center line. Picture that going through the center of the engine. And then you got the swing arm pivot here. It's a little bit further below thrust center line. So you have that adjustability and tunability where you can bring it up, you can move it down, you can make the arms wider, you can make one side wider, one side narrower. You've got all this adjustability, which is, it's a bit of a learning curve for some people. Some people will just pull it out of the box right at the baseline and probably not touch it. But here's the thing. We're not all going to be beginners for our entire paramotor career. So you have the ability to fly it as it is for first year or so until you get comfortable and you think, you know what, I want to try a few different things on it and see if I can find a little bit better setup for myself. That's the beauty of the Limitless. You can start it as a beginner machine and it will advance with you. You could go all the way, literally go all the way from an Atom 80 to a Cosmos, Plini 303, Sky 150, Sky Boxer 220. You can put any engine on this thing. You can adjust. Then you've got the adjustment for the pivot points to fine tune it for whichever motor. If it's running a gear drive or a belt drive, you offset the torque compensation. You have all of those options. Now, come take a look at these pivot points. Okay, so on my right side here, I've got it sticking out further. This is where a lot of the mechanical torque compensation comes in. Now, if you look on the other side here, it's pretty much all the way into the frame itself. So the way mechanical torque compensation works, picture a center line of the harness versus a center line of the carabiners. What you're doing is you're inducing weight shift onto the one side that's going to turn. So with belt drive, it has a tendency to turn right. So you're going to put a little bit more weight shift. Picture again, center line of the harness versus the center line of the carabiners. You're putting more weight on the left side, so it's going to hold that position. And with these, now if you notice, these claws on the arms here are both offset to the same side. A lot of times with mechanical torque compensation, you kind of lose feel one side versus the other. It seems like you can rip it to the left, but it takes a little bit more effort to the right. So in order to even that feel out, they've added these claws here at the bottom of the swing arm to the one side. So it still gives you that weight shift to the left side, even though it's also offset. So further out is the right side. And what that does is it offsets your body weight to the right. Actually, it offsets it to the left. You will have more weight, more of your body weight will be on the left side. So when you're on full throttle, full power, you're inducing weight shift without actually inducing weight shift. All right, so I want to discuss the actual frame itself and some of the tubing they use. Spars are 14 millimeter, hoop is 18, chassis is 16 millimeter. So bigger tubing is obviously a lot stronger. It's a little bit different grade tubing than most paramotors. It has some springiness to it. It's pretty easy to bend back, but with the design of the Limitless, we have this down tube comes all the way back to the base of the frame and also has this support piece in here, this kind of gusset to it. If you do butt land, it will have a tendency to bounce back. With this tube going all the way to the back of the base of the frame and having this gusset tube in here gives it a lot of rigidity. So you'd have to really butt land extremely hard to bend any of this frame. I've seen a number of butt landings so far, and none of them have bent the frame itself. Now, with anything, when you strengthen one thing, you weaken another. It finds the next weakest point. So if you do butt land hard enough, the motor mount plate itself is probably where it's going to bend. But for the average person, it's a lot easier to replace this aluminum motor mount plate than pull the whole chassis apart and try to bend it yourself. So that's another feature as well. So it does have some give to it. So the net is Dyneema. It's hand woven at Liberty. They have one guy there and a big jig that they're hand weaving every single net. It's very, very small diameter, but it's very strong. Easy to replace. There's a couple of, if you can close up here, you can see where these little small loops, you can easily replace those versus replacing the entire net. It's pretty easy, just drill out the old rivet. That's really quite impressive. All these frames were based off of slalom machines, so they want as little drag as possible. So that's an advantage of the Dyneema. It's strong, but it's also very low drag. All these Limitless frames are going to be 1530, so 1,530 millimeters or 153 centimeters. They all will accommodate a 140 prop. That's not even I believe, that is the way the paramotor world is going, is bigger props. It's just so much more efficient. I think in 5 years, the days of like 125 props and that'll kind of be over. Thrust center lines are coming up higher on the back. As you can see here, thrust center line compared to the top of the shoulders. You'd have to look at a different machine to really see the contrast, but it's going to come up higher on the back. Now, it does launch a little bit differently, but what that does is when you're on full power, instead of that prop being like this and wanting to do all this kind of stuff, it's pretty much locks into a straight up and down position. It's much more efficient. You're kind of loading the wing, and it's a lot less torque, a lot less all these other gyroscopic effects that you have to deal with. So that's another thing that the paramotor world is going towards. It kind of freaks people out a little bit, because especially with a higher power machine, with a big 140 prop, freaked me out at first time I experienced it, but your risers have kind of come real close to the hoop sections as you're on full power. But eventually you just get used to it. So the gas tank, the good, bad, and the ugly of the gas tank. The good is it has a ton of capacity. You can squeeze about 16 liters into this thing if you filled it up to the brim. It's officially a 14-liter tank. The fill location is definitely not ideal with a Moster on it. If you have an Atom or a Polini or one of those other types of motors, it's not a problem. I've been running these things for a while. It's really not that big a deal to me. You just stick a jiggle tube in there, set it up, set your jug on a chair, jiggle it, and sit there and watch it fill, so you don't have to hold the tank. Or if you ever go to if you land in an airport and you need to fill it with avgas, you can take that pump handle, because this filler neck is so big, go in behind the harness like this, stick the nozzle in there, and fill it up with avgas like that. There's not a whole lot of other machines you can do that with. What I don't like about this fuel tank is the weight distribution. A lot of it is just kind of flat at the bottom here. Next fuel tank that we're coming out with, hopefully in the next few months, it's really close. It's going to be more of a V shape. It's not going to be as deep, so a lot of that weight will be distributed up on the back. It'll make it a lot better for ground handling. Just weight distribution in general will be a lot better. And the filler neck will be coming out the side like this, so there will be no more issues of exhaust getting in the way. You can use your VP can or your lawnmower can or your jiggle tube or whatever you want to do. It's still going to be this type of cap, which is nice because the threads are excellent on these caps. They don't cross thread like a lot of other fuel caps do. So it'll come out here and you can just fill it however you want to. It's going to be a little bit taller. I think it's looking like it's going to come up to about here or so. Still going to be about 16 liters if you jam it full. I really think it'll be the best fuel tank on the market for sure. I think we just sent out our 20th so far since we started selling them back in May. So they've been catching on pretty well. People that own them really like them. There's fine tuning with getting it exactly tailored to you and what you want. The baseline is really good, but more of the established pilots, they like to play with things a little bit more and get it right where they want it. So, but here's the thing, you're gonna learn about how a paramotor flies by doing all that. What I recommend is trying a little bit at a time. Don't make a drastic change right off the bat. Change it a little bit, fly it, see how you like it. If it feels like you're going in the right direction, then make another adjustment, test it. If you like that, keep going until you get it exactly where you want it. Aerodynamic torque compensation, we're gonna we've been working on that a little bit. We're gonna continue with that. What I wanna do is add just a little bit of aerodynamic torque compensation. If we do aerodynamic torque compensation, you can take some of that mechanical torque compensation back out of it and get even more of an even feel to the left or to the right or whatever. Then I think that would really set it off as being a pretty dialed in machine. So this is a quick release prop hub from Myers Paramotor up in Washington. This is a pretty travel friendly machine, so if you're breaking your cage down in that, it's just one less thing that you have to do. It's super easy. Release the cam, turn this a few times. Down that goes. Yep. Yeah, it's friggin' carbon fiber and stainless steel. These things are ridiculously strong. So yeah, I can take my prop off just as easy as that. Go to put it back on just as easily. Line it up. Another advantage that this gives you is if you had a 3-blade and a 2-blade, you could switch back and forth between them depending on the mission. Super easy. It kind of gives you that ability. But the reason why I got it is it just makes this that much more of a travel-friendly machine. The hoop and spars come apart super easy and go back together super easy on this. The hardest part of all that is the making sure that the net doesn't get tangled.
Like you see here, I failed.
Carlos at Liberty, I talk to that guy pretty regularly. They're always making little changes and updates with how they do things and their processes in the machine itself. They're always looking for different ways to improve things. So if you look, just for instance, easy example, they were using just a regular piece of fabric and it had a tendency to break sometimes, so they started using this bridle material. It made this tremendously stronger. You'll never have an issue with this again. The upper bracket for upper attachment points for the harness, they added some adjustability to this. All Limitlesses come with this. Now some of the Liberties come with this as well. So I have mine set all the way up. It makes it a little bit easier to launch. It kind of gets the top of your shoulders a little bit more above the thrust center line. The disadvantage of running it like that I found is your speed bar position isn't quite as optimal as it is when you have it set at factory or down low, just because that thrust center line is pushing lower on your back more than higher on your back. Another thing about the Limitless, it is a feature that I like. Instead of having this pull start pulley in a fixed position and you can reef on it and ruin your rope and everything, it's on this rope up here. Gives it a little bit more flexibility. You can mount it on the other side if you're a right-hand throttle flyer for some reason or another. A lot of paramotors are starting to go this route just to give that flexibility. Also, it really is a lot better on the starter rope. They do have a tendency to kind of flip around, such as this when you're flying. Kind of gets it out of the way of your head and everything, which is nice, but people get a little bit like, I don't know, they think that the pull start is going to like fly into the propeller somehow or another while you're in flight. I don't know. I haven't had that happen yet. So easy solution. Reach behind, feel your fingers like this, give it the old fish hook, and you got it. I've started this thing from in reverse like this in a reverse launch type scenario. Just another muscle memory thing to get. All right, so that about does it for this episode. I'm sure we'll be doing more videos on the Limitless Paramotor, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching. This is Neil from Aviator. Peace out.